When we talk about the structure of the Earth, we can talk about it in various spheres. We've already covered the geosphere, which is the rock and everything inside the interior of the Earth. Today we're going to look at the gases above, which is known as the atmosphere. Now, the atmosphere is affected by the solar radiation, the energy that comes into our atmosphere from the sun across outer space. And that solar radiation affects everything from climate to weather. It affects our biodiversity and it affects our life. And the amount of radiation that we receive depends on where we are on the Earth's surface, where the tilt is, how we are rotating, and how we revolve around the sun. So we have two what we call equinoxes, which is where the day and night are equal. So here's my world here. And March and in September, the sun shines most directly on the equator. So the days and nights are about the same length. In what we call the solstices, we have summer solstice and winter solstice. With the solstice, the sun is the highest in the northern hemisphere for the summer solstice, and the sun is the lowest in the southern hemisphere for the winter solstice. Okay, those are the longest days for us and the shortest days for us, and it'd be, of course, flipped for the southern hemisphere. So those areas where the sun is the most north and the most south are called the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. So here is this little dashed line right here. There's a label right there you can see is our Tropic of Cancer. And then there's another dashed line down here on the bottom. That's our Tropic of Capricorn. And that is the most north and the most south that the sun goes. Now, remember that it is not the sun that is changing space. If you look at the picture down here, it's actually the tilt of the Earth, how it is in relation to the sun, that determines where the sun is north or south of the equator. The sun isn't moving. We are moving, which causes our tilt to be different as it goes around the sun. Okay, so we just talk about, since we're here on Earth, we talk about everything in relation to ourselves. So the sun is north or south, even though it hasn't moved. Okay, this north and south movement of the sun creates our seasons. So where we get the most sunlight, we get the most radiation, we get longer daylight to absorb all that radiation, and so that is our summertime where it's warm. In our winter time, the sun's rays are hitting more at an oblique angle. They're not directly on us. We have shorter days to absorb that radiation, and so that's when we have the coldest temperatures. And of course, our summer and winter are flip-flopped from what the southern hemisphere would experience, because when we're tilted away from the sun, they're tilted towards it. Okay, so summer, winter, and then vice versa. Now, our summers and our winters are not related to how far we are from the sun, whether we're close or far away. The perihelion, which is where we're the closest, is actually in January. Aphelion, where we're furthest away, is actually in July. So the difference in distance that we are from the sun as we rotate in our little egg-shaped orbit does not determine our seasons. It's the tilt and the amount of radiation that we're able to absorb. So that atmosphere absorbs that radiation in those gases. That helps to insulate us from all that radiation. If we didn't have that atmosphere, then all that radiation would come straight to us and we would be absorbing X-rays and gamma rays and all kinds of stuff. The atmosphere helps to insulate us from that. And it also helps to regulate our temperature. The atmosphere on the surface of the Earth is going to take in that solar radiation, and it's kind of like having a blanket on. It's going to hold on to that radiation, protect us from having too much, but then also hold in enough warmth to keep our climate pretty regular. So our atmosphere is made up of 78% nitrogen, majority nitrogen. There's 21% oxygen, which is what we breathe, and then there's a bunch of other stuff. There's water vapor, there's carbon dioxide, there's methane. There are all kinds of trace gases in the atmosphere as well, but those are our biggest, is nitrogen and oxygen. So what I suggest, instead of writing, because that's boring, make yourself a little pie chart and cut the wedge out and say, okay, this big piece is nitrogen, small piece is nitrogen, and then give yourself, oxygen, and then give yourself a little sliver for your other trace gases. All right, so those trace gases contain, or one of the things that could be in those trace gases are particles, little particulate matter. And when we say particulate matter, that could be soil that's blown up and ash and salt, could be combustion products, could be bits of skin and hair and pollen and bacteria and viruses. There's all kinds of things, liquid droplets, aerosols, that make up that particulate matter. So when we talk about pollution later in the year, most likely what we'll be talking about as far as pollution goes is this particulate matter, the stuff that's suspended in the air that we don't want to breathe in. Now, air is above us, and air does have mass. We tend to not notice it because we're so used to it. So gravity does exert a force on air that holds it in, otherwise it'd be floating out in space, right? And so that atmosphere is more dense and heavier at the surface. Most of your gases, if almost all of them, are located in that bottom 30 kilometers of our atmosphere. The higher you go above the Earth's surface, the less dense it gets. And where it's very low density, it can be hard to breathe because we're used to this surface level density. So if you've ever been high in a mountain, gone to Colorado, or flown in an airplane, you've noticed that the air pressure is very different, and it can make it very hard to breathe. So here's our layers of the atmosphere, and I do want you to pause and draw your layers. The main thing I want you to notice is that these layers are different. The main thing that separates the layers is the temperature change. So in the troposphere, our lowest layer, as you go up in elevation, the temperature drops, okay? Temperature and pressure drop. As you get from the troposphere to the stratosphere, if you make that transition there, then your temperature starts to go up. Weird, huh? The reason is this ozone layer right here. So this ozone layer here is absorbing UV radiation, which that absorption of radiation makes it warmer. So the higher you go in the stratosphere, the warmer it gets. Mesosphere, that middle layer, the temperature drops again. Thermosphere, it tends to raise very rapidly, heat. And the main reason is not because there's so many particles moving around fast, it's that there's so few particles. The ones that are there are moving very, very quickly and have a lot of kinetic energy. So you might, if you could go to the thermosphere and stick your finger out the window, hypothetically, it wouldn't feel that warm to you, but all the particles that are out there are moving super fast, okay? So it gets colder, hotter, colder, hotter. So let's look a little bit deeper at those atmosphere layers. The troposphere is the closest. It's the densest. That's where we live. All of our weather happens there. And as you go up in altitude, your temperature decreases. That's why it can snow on the tops of mountains and be a desert down underneath. The stratosphere is that next layer. The temperature increases because of the ozone layer. Ozone is O3. It's 3 oxygens that are bonded together. And that ozone layer tends to absorb our UV radiation. That's why it gets hotter the higher you go. Mesosphere is that middle layer. It's the coldest. And then the thermosphere is that upper, that almost into outer space layer, where that solar radiation is absorbed and that temperature gets very, very high because of the amount of kinetic energy that each of those particles have. They rarely transfer that heat to people. Of course, people aren't up there, but if you could go out there, you wouldn't feel that temperature because you rarely encounter the molecule. There's so few of them. But that outer layer does do a great job of absorbing radiation that would harm us, gamma radiation, X-ray radiation. And when it re-emits the energy, then we might see something called the northern lights, the aurora borealis. Okay. How we transfer that energy, we talked about colliding particles in that that thermosphere there. 3 ways you can transfer energy. You can transfer it through radiation, which is by waves, electromagnetic radiation. You can transfer it by conduction, and conduction is a direct transfer by touch. And you can transfer by convection, which is the movement of fluids. So our atmosphere is mostly gases. That movement of fluids is convection, and that takes energy from one place to to the other. So energy comes in with radiation from the sun. The earth absorbs some of that radiation, that energy. The atmosphere absorbs some of that radiation. And then also some of it is reflected back off into space. And that absorption and reflection helps us to maintain our balance. Some areas reflect better than others. There's a term called albedo that is a determinant of how much reflectivity. Something that is very light colored that reflects a lot has high albedo. Something that's dark colored that absorbs a lot has low albedo. And so those dark colors absorb, light colors reflect. That's why on a very warm day, you will feel warmer if you're wearing something dark and not as warm if you're wearing something light colored. So energy moves through our atmosphere. The warm air is less dense. The particles are moving faster and away from each other so that warm air will rise. Then it will cool and condense and sink. And so that continuous rising and sinking of air in our atmosphere is what causes our weather. It rises and holds a bunch of moisture and rises up in the atmosphere, warms. And then whenever it cools and condenses, it releases that moisture and we get rain. And then, of course, that movement of air is also our wind patterns. The greenhouse effect is one that you've heard about a lot on the news. It's a way of trapping that heat, which is a good thing. If we could not trap that heat, then it would be way too cold. Think like Mars. Mars has very little atmosphere, and so all the radiation comes in and then it reflects right back out, and you don't have enough atmosphere to warm the planet and make it good for life. But of course, too much can be a bad thing. And later in the year, we're going to talk about what happens when that greenhouse effect is too much. We have too much of it. But several gases in our atmosphere can be greenhouse gases. Water vapor, for one, that's the one you'll notice the most. On a cloudy day, we tend to stay more of the same temperature. On a very open, sunny day, or if you go to an area that's very low humidity, then you'll notice a bigger swing in temperatures between when the sun's up, maybe 100 during the day, and 60 at night. You'll notice a bigger swing in temperature because that water vapor holds on to heat. Carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, those are also greenhouse gases. So when we talk the greenhouse effect and when we talk about conditions, it's important to remember the difference between weather and climate. So weather is very short term. Wind, precipitation, it's what's going on outside. Climate is a long-term pattern, watching that weather. Different areas will have different climates depending on their prevailing conditions. And some of that's affected by latitude and altitude. Now, latitude is how far north or south of the equator you are. All these lines across the middle here are lines of latitude, okay? Altitude can also have an effect. The higher you go, the colder the troposphere is, and so the colder and drier your air will be. You also get a little bit of change in our weather caused by some very large structures like this mountain range here. And we'll talk more about rain shadows when we talk about biomes. There's more solar energy coming in to the poles, coming into the equator than there is at the poles, is what I was trying to say. Where the Earth is pointed towards the sun, you get a lot of direct sunlight hitting it. Up towards the North and South Pole, it gets a lot more indirect. And as the world turns, you also get a rotation of those air masses called the Coriolis effect. So here's an idea of what the Coriolis effect would be like. Let's say that we could throw something from the top to the bottom, but as we're doing that, the world is turning. So we get that spin, and that spin is responsible for the swirling of major hurricanes, okay? We also get these circulation cells, and we're gonna pause here for a second because on Monday, I want us to get together and draw these cells and look at their effect on our weather. So hold off on the cells for a second. This is kind of the picture of what we're going to draw on Monday when we look at that atmospheric circulation and how they affect our weather, and we'll look a little bit deeper at prevailing weather patterns, okay? So that's where we're going to stop today. Hold off on the cells again. We'll do that Monday and talk about weather and how the atmosphere and the weather affects us.